Hey, what's up, everybody? So, in our next episode, we'll be joined by Sarah, and we'll be talking about, you know, things that surprise us in Japan. Just Japan's such a different country that there's just so many things that, as living here, we kind of get surprised at. So, sit back, enjoy, and check it out. All right.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. Today, we're joined by Sarah because we have a really fun topic, and we're going to run down our top 5 most surprising things that you see when you come to Japan. What surprises you the most? The biggest culture shocks. I've been to Japan quite a few times, so I've got a list in my head, and we've all come up with our each individual sort of specific lists. But before we get into that, how are you guys? I saw you were eating some barbecue today. How was that?
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was super hot though, man. It's really hot.
How hot
is it was super interesting because we met a lot of people. We met a lot of old friends, and then the thing that I'm most excited about is I met a guy that owns a temple, and it's a pretty well-known temple, and he's offered to if I bring some beads over, he'll like have the monks bless it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about that. So maybe every trip that I go to Hawaii, I'll select a bunch to bring and just bless those, and just those certain ones will be blessed like that.
Yeah.
So kind of exciting.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. So today's topic. So we're gonna run down a list. We've done like a sort of top 5 list, and I'll kick it off. Okay, so just a caveat so people know. Obviously, so I've been to Japan 5 times. The first time was in 2008. I didn't really know much about Japan. I was 18 years old. And the first thing that I noticed when I got off the plane was actually vending machines, and how there are so many vending machines everywhere. And it wasn't just the airport. It was literally down the road. It was next to the hostel I was staying in. They're absolutely everywhere. But yeah, so that's the first thing that sort of springs to mind, and that's why it's on my list.
That's a good one. There are.
The drinks are really good though, right? Like, and the fact that you can have like hot and cold drinks, that blew my mind as well.
Yeah, but it's not just drinks. You get the soups, like the corn soup and stuff in winter is.
Yeah, I've never
really
tried
popular.
that.
Yeah, you can now in Japan, the vending machines, you can pretty much get anything. You can get a meal. You can get, depending on the place you go, you can get meals. You get ice cream.
Wow.
Of course, hot and cold drinks. I mean, pretty much everything. And even I don't know if they still do it, but I know back in the day they used to sell beer.
Really? Oh yeah, I think I did see that once.
Yeah,
I've just seen some new ones too. Some new ones that've actually got cakes, like dessert cakes in a can. They're kind of the clear plastic cans, and they've stacked like cakes with strawberry and whipped cream and stuff in them, which is crazy.
That is mental. Cake in a vending machine.
Yeah.
Sarah, what have you got as number 5?
Number 5, I've got you don't close the taxi doors here. So all of the doors, the taxis here, they open them automatically at the back. And I think one of the very first trips I went to go close the door, and was told that you don't do that. Yeah, so it's all automatic. So you just let them do their thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you don't open or close the doors. If you go catch a taxi, you just wait by it and it'll open for you.
I remember on one particular night out, I might have had one too many beverages and was very confused by the fact that the door was automatically opening. So yeah, it's super trippy.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is I forget. I think it's MK Taxi. There's a company called MK Taxi. These guys will literally climb over the passenger seat and get out of the car before you touch the door and open the door for you.
Wow.
You ever had that happen, Sarah? That it's called an MK. We don't ride the taxi often, but there's a MK MK taxi that their drivers actually just like pretty much scurry over the passenger seat, open the passenger door, get out, and open the door for you.
Wow.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Crazy.
awesome. So what have you guys done number 5, Enson?
Pretty much, especially the train stations, but pretty much everything's controlled in Japan. So what I found really interesting that I didn't really realize, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the stairs have like arrows on them. So if there's a huge stair, there's one area you go up and one area you go down. And literally, if you go up the wrong side, they'll kind of look like you're like screwing up their system. Like, whoa, what are you doing? You know. So the stairs, especially the train stations, you go up when you have a rush. You don't usually see guys walking up where the arrow says go down and walking down where the arrow says go up. For me, it was kind of a trip to notice that everybody follows the rules.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's kind of everything feels so organized, right? It's quite very different to here in the UK, to say the least. So number four on my list is masks, because now it seems like nothing, right? Like, you know, we're so used to it because of the pandemic and stuff like that. But the first time ever, it was like, you know, I was like, what the hell? Why is everyone wearing this? And you know, the reasons that I heard from like other like foreigners staying in hostels was so like not what I think it was for. But I heard people say, oh, there's so much pollution, so they wear the masks to not like pollute their lungs. And then I heard that it was more for around health reasons, right? But yeah, you know, it's crazy to think that now everyone's sort of accustomed to it. But the first time I ever went there, I'd never seen anyone like wear a mask. So it was really like, it was quite a shock. It was kind of weird.
What's amazing is the main reason why they wear masks is because if you see someone in Japan with a mask, 99% of the time the reason is because they probably have a cold and they don't want to spread their germs to you.
Which is nice, right?
Yeah, real considerate.
Yeah.
That is a good one. That's a really good one. Pre-pandemic, that is quite a shock to come
like
into.
Now it'll be nothing, right?
Yeah.
But back before then, back in my day, it was a shocker. Sarah, what have you got as number 4?
Speaking of which, funny you say that, back in my day. So something that really shocked me is the elderly community here and how late, like how into, you know, their later years they're working. So when I moved here, in the mornings I'd go for my run around the neighborhood, and I had an incident where I saw somebody, and I swear they must have been in their 80s at least, 80s, maybe 90s, because they were kind of quite hunched, and they looked like they were struggling with a wheelbarrow. So I kind of, you know, ran over and offered to help them, and they scolded me, kind of like told me, like, leave me alone, I'm fine, like, you know, leave me alone, essentially. And they were, but especially in our neighborhood, we've got a lot of gardens where we are, and people are in the gardens a lot, but a lot of the elderly community work, you know, until they're in their 80s here. It's amazing.
That's a really good one. I didn't think to put that on my list, but it's so true, right? I remember seeing like the ones I always see was the people like guiding traffic and stuff. Like you're like usually have the little red things, right? And then you look at it, you'd be like, whoa, you look like you're definitely way past the typical retirement age over here. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and they even like ride bicycles when they're like, whoa, you're not supposed to be riding a bicycle anymore. So Sarah actually touched on 2 of them at one shot, because one is the things, you know, she said the things they do when up until that crazy age that most people would have their grandchild do it or get pushed around in a wheelchair, but they do it themselves. And the other thing Sarah mentioned that I wanted to point out was they really don't like to be helped. Yeah, when Sarah said the wheelbarrow would try to help them, they're like, no, I'm okay. You know, and it's like pretty much almost like you're offending them in a way, yeah?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, so true. What have you got as your number 4, Enson?
My number 4 is something that I learned while mingling with business people and mingling with high up people or presidents of companies. Is for me, I was always taking care of like a special guest, and especially the special guests. They feel it's a honor for them to show you how important you are by making sure they pour your drinks. So they'll literally, if you like, I have a habit, I hate to act like I'm a big honcho or anything, and I don't wait for them to pour my drink. So with my drinks running out, I start pouring my drink, and they literally freak out, and before I can even pour a drop, they'll grab the bottle or whatever, the soda can or whatever from me, and they'll start pouring it for me.
Whoa.
And with that said, what I learned also with that same idea about the drink thing is if you don't want them to pour your drinks, don't drink your drink down, because it's a bad thing for them to leave your drink empty or even low. So if you're like getting full drinking juice and you don't want to drink anymore, leave the majority of the juice in the cup until before you leave the restaurant, because if you drink it down halfway or more, they're going to fill it up. And it's like, oh, I can't drink. I don't want any more. And it's kind of weird if you tell them, no, I'm good, unless you really know the person well.
Wow, that's an interesting one. That one's cool because I've never experienced that, right? I'm not important enough for someone to be pouring my drink. So it's kind of cool to hear that, though. But it's crazy. But that is quite common in a lot of cultures, right? I think I mentioned before, my wife's Indian, and in Indian culture, you've got to eat as much as possible, right? So if your plate's empty, they're bringing more food, and that's just kind of how it is there. So, but yeah, I've heard sort of things about the drinks before in Japan, so that's cool. On that sort of culinary aspect, one of the things that surprised me the most, and this is my number 3, was the food. The food, I know it's quite a general topic, but I don't know, maybe because I wasn't on the internet as much, but back in the day, I remember thinking that all Japanese food would be sushi. I just thought it would all be like kind of that everything would be kind of cold and squidgy. And like as soon as I got there, I was like amazed at like the different varieties of food and how different it was, right? And even like the food quality was like, if you went to some fast food joint or whatever, it was such a high quality of food, that even the cheapest food tasted really good and was prepared really nicely. And even things like Yoshinoya I didn't mind, and all the other little chains and stuff like that. And I can't remember some of the other names. I love a good Moss burger as well. That was good, the MOS burger. But yeah, I was amazed at sort of the variety, and even like their take on like things like Italian food, right? Like I remember eating some Italian food in Japan and thinking, this is like amazing. It's similar but not quite the same, but it's like their own take on it. And yeah, that always struck a chord with me at how good the food was over there. So
good food in Japan.
Pizza's the same. The pizza doesn't taste like pizza. It's super expensive too. So Western food in Japan is really expensive, which is such a trip.
Yeah, that's the one thing I remember being a bit strange, like cheese. Like in Japan, cheese is kind of, I don't know, like the cheese on the pizza tasted different, and that was one of the few things I noticed where it was, I don't know, a bit not quite the same, but so much other stuff was really cool, the way they make different pastas and stuff like that. But yeah.
And speaking of pizza, I just learned after being here for 31 years that your pizza is actually almost half price if you pick it up at the pizza place instead of having them deliver it.
No way.
Yeah.
Still learning.
So I'm picking up all my pizzas from now. I'm not going to order and have them come here. I'm going to pick up all my pizzas.
Go and grab it.
Yeah, because it's like about $30 or $40 for one pizza. A large pizza. Yeah, no, it's crazy expensive.
Yeah, like for example, a large pizza would be like $35. But if you go and pick it up at the shop, it'll be like $1,600 or $16.
Oh, so that up. That's 30
yeah,
pounds.
it's crazy. It's like super. Yeah. It's like a huge difference, man.
That's crazy. No wonder. Yeah, definitely pick up the pizza.
Order pizza, pick it up. Go pick it up, and then you can order two.
The biggest takeaway from this podcast right now is if you order Japanese,
pick up your pizza, people.
Make sure you pick it up. Sarah, what's your number 3?
Number 3 was the what have I got? Garbage. So the trash, the rubbish. So not just putting them out. So we have different days allocated for different things, but the sorting of it and how particular you have to be. So the PET bottles are separate, but the recyclables, the non-recyclables, but even all of that has to be sorted into like spray cans, and so you have all these different categories. And honestly, even now, like I've been here for almost 9 years, I still have to either Google some of the things that we might get for the trash, or they have a monthly. The city hall sends like monthly newsletters or magazines. I've kept the one that they've got all the trash sorting in it, so it's my little reference guide. But that is a trip, trying to figure out the trash.
So Sarah didn't mention, but it's not just you separate the trash. You only can throw certain trash out on certain days.
Whoa, okay.
Like burnable for here, I think Monday for us is like PET bottles and cans. Tuesday is all burnables. Wednesday is like clothing or bigger items. Yeah, so it's like every day, every different area is actually a little different. So if we go to the town next to us, the whole trash days will be a little bit different, but it's always separated, like she said. And what kind of crazy is I used to be like the worst gaijin where I would never separate shit. The only time I started separating is since Sarah been coming, because Sarah was such a good person. But it's come to a point where, because I've been separating the trash so much now, I feel weird now going home and throwing everything into one trash in Hawaii.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I have a bit of a confession on that one, because it's funny that you mentioned that, Sarah, and then you also mentioned about the old people. Well, when I had a little apartment, not apartment, it was like a house in like a shared guest house. It was filled with like divorced Japanese businessmen, but that's kind of like a different story for a different day. But so I was staying in this little house, this little flat, and there was literally just one room. It had a fridge and a bed, and I just couldn't work out what to do with like all the trash and stuff like that. And obviously in Japan, you're always buying like bottles of water and stuff like that. And I remember I had them like all around like the room, because I couldn't be bothered to like work out how to like do it. I'm only 18, right? Sue me. And then I thought like, I've got to get rid of all this stuff, right? It's just cluttering up my room. So I went and found like what I thought was like a plastic bin, and I'm just there with this giant bag of bottles, putting one by one. And then this little old lady just came, rushing over as fast as she could, just shouting at me in Japanese, like, what are you doing? And I'm being like, oh my God, what am I doing? She's about to citizen arrest me or something.
When I first came to Japan, I didn't separate my trash and I just threw it out. And at that time, I didn't realize how anal the people will be. But if I had anything that had my address in there, the next day I'd find the trash back on my doorstep.
Whoa, really? Wow.
They bring it back to you. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So when we put the trash out every day, it's kind of like community run too. So, for our block where we live, we've got a little station where everyone takes their trash. So after the rubbish trucks come and pick them up, some like people in the community are allocated. They'll go and clean the area too. So these little brooms and pans and stuff. So they'll go and like clean the area. So it's they'll find your stuff and return it to you if you don't do it right.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's a good thing, right? It's better for the planet. It makes total sense. It's just it's one of those things, right? It's a shock to the system. It's different from maybe how other countries do it.
Yeah.
So, but they should learn.
Yeah.
Enson, what have you got as your number 3?
My number 3 was actually going to be the fact that it's not just ladies first, but it's men only here. But as you were talking about the food, I thought of better number 3. I changed my number 3, and I'll put that men's only on honorable mention. But the number 3 that I have is the convenience stores. They're like amazing. You can you go to this convenience store like a 7-Eleven in Hawaii, and it's like and someone tells you got to eat dinner there. You're like, I got it potato chip. Oh wait, turnover, microwave burrito or nachos. It's like there's nothing to eat. And what's real funny is one of the big activists, Rick O'Barry, was detained because he's an activist and he was going against the rules of he was doing a lot of protests in Taiji about the dolphin killing. And I remember when he got arrested and put in the immigration cell, there was huge uproar because they were saying they're mistreating him. They're treating him so bad because his meals, they're only letting him go to 7-Eleven for his meals. And I'm like, whoa, I could actually eat at a convenience store, 7-Eleven or a Lawson, like every day of the month. I mean, the bentos and the ice creams, the desserts, the drinks they have. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. And the food is good. I mean, they even have like unagi there being sold there now.
Wow.
I mean, that's a trippy thing for me is the convenience stores in Japan. The food is so good. It's like you can eat there.
And it's
every
fresh.
day.
Like they're constantly stocking. Like it's so fresh.
Yeah. I remember being surprised by that as well.
For Sarah and I, that's one of our options for dinner. It's like, oh, you want to go ramen? You want to go unagi? Or you sushi? Convenience store?
Yeah.
It's one of the options, actually.
Yeah. No, I remember. It was so good. I couldn't believe it that you're getting such nice food from like just a little convenience store. Me and my brother-in-law, we said the same thing. Like as soon as we got off the train from Narita Airport, the first thing we were doing was looking for a convenience store to get some good food, right? Because we knew that it was immediately going to be, really good. But yeah, compared to, like you say, like a 7-Eleven in Hawaii or like a spa shop in over here in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like for you in the UK, James, but in New Zealand, we call the convenience stores the dairies, and they're actually really expensive. You're better off kind of saving your money and going and buying at the supermarket if you're going to get a meal. But in Japan, there's hardly a price difference between going to the convenience and the supermarket. So that's really, again, convenient. What about the UK? Is it like that for you guys?
It's probably not as bad. It's only really for like petrol stations, like gas stations. Like that's where it's like super expensive because they've got sort of taken advantage of people that are out on the road that want to quickly grab something. But a lot of the big supermarkets also have like an express store, so they have like the smaller stores as well. So you usually got options, and there's usually affordable stuff, but it's never great, and it's never as good as Japan. So
Actually, that's what's interesting too, going on a tangent as well, is that the gas stations don't have a convenience store attached to them like they do in like the States or in UK and New Zealand. Like,
yeah,
it's just gas
fuel,
stations.
Right? Yeah, actually, that's a good one for the list, right? Like how confusing
it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
My one experience of driving in Japan, which was interesting. Cool. Number two. So number two, this is quite a big one. You're gonna, people might complain, but though I would just put the contrast between modern and the old-fashioned, because it blew my mind how Japan could be so forward-thinking, so modern, and then you see like fax machines. You'd be like, wait, what? Like fax machines died a death, and there's probably still some kid knocking about there, right? Like.
Yeah, in certain areas they are so advanced. In certain areas they're like so like primitive.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of it's quite cool to see sometimes, and I think it's kind of reflected in a lot of things, right? What's quite nice is you see a lot of like the tradition. I remember always being struck by that in Tokyo. Where you got in Asakaza, you got the Sensoji Temple and all the bits around there. You've got that nice sort of traditional stuff, which is and then but you're in like a big city as well, so. It's quite cool that you got all the different sort of temples and stuff to sort of mix it up in the city, which is nice. But yeah, the contrast between modern and old fashioned, I just, it was constant. I'd just see different things. I'd be like, wow, that's so advanced. And then every other things you'd be like, whoa, that's quite like dated.
Even
like
the handwriting,
well.
some of them, they still handwrite the receipts at a lot of the shops. So that's a trip.
That is funny. What have you got as your number two, Sarah?
Number two, I've got The clothing, I thought that was a little bit of a culture shock for me, and from a female perspective. So, for example, in summer, I would walk around in tank tops back home, or even in the States and stuff. But here, they're a lot more conservative. So, I mean, you do get the outliers, people that do wear it, but in general, it's a lot more conservative here, the dress. So, even today at the barbecue, you'd see women wearing like dresses with a strap like this, but that actually have a t-shirt underneath it. So that's the dress is really interesting, and even down to, I've noticed with training. So when I go to the States, people train in spats and stuff, no problem. But here it's more you wear your spats underneath your shorts, like you kind of cover up a bit more here. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always remember thinking how sort of smartly dressed people were as well. I remember that always being quite a big shock. I remember thinking I looked like such a tramp, or you come in, you're like whatever you could pack in your suitcase, and then you'd be sat next to someone like some nicely dressed person on the train, and it always I always felt underdressed in Japan.
The
And
flip
while we're on
side
the
of that,
topic
though.
of While we're on the topic of dressing, the good thing I like about Japan too is you can never dress too weird in Japan. I mean, there's some weird dressers. I mean, I can even walk out in my robe, by yukata, and people just don't really care.
That's cool. Yeah. Did you have anything else to add, Sarah? To that?
Oh no, I was pretty much just going to say what Enson just said. So,
Oh,
like on
right,
the flip
right.
side of that, like they can be really conservative, but I mean, you can also get away with wearing, whatever you want as well.
Whatever you
So,
mean.
yeah, it's a really
Nothing's too
interesting
weird to
contrast.
wear in Japan.
Yeah. Especially Harajuku Park. I remember seeing lots of interestingly
Yeah,
dressed people.
Harajuku,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always a trip for first timers when they come to Japan. Go to Harajuku.
Yeah, it is. Enson, you're number 2?
Yeah, I decided to do my number 2 as tipping. You don't tip in Japan.
Yeah, that's a shock.
And it's funny because they'll literally run the money back to you, and they won't accept the tip. And the funny thing is when we order pizza here, I always tip them.
Even at those
And
prices.
in the beginning, they were like totally like they didn't want to take it. I kind of forced it on them, saying, no, I'm American, so we usually tip. So you take it. And now it's like they know. So when we do tip them, they just thank us. So it's not the usual where they go, no tipping, no, we can't accept it. They can't accept it now. But now we don't need to worry about that because I'm going to be picking up all my takeout orders.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy that you actually pay more for the pizza.
You know what's the thing that I really tripped out a lot about is in Japan they don't let you tip, but they have like tipping was supposed to be in terms of service. You get good service, you give good tip. You get shitty service, you don't tip. But it's in Japan. It's like they have the best service in the world, and it's like you can't tip them. And then on the other flip side, you got the Americans that don't give you good service, but you gotta tip them. It's like you can't not tip anyone. No matter, it's like doesn't matter how bad the service is, you gotta leave tip. Tips almost like a mandatory thing, and it's more like if you get really good service, give me a good tip. But other than that, you gotta tip me. Tipping is I almost feel like it's a percentage of the bill. You gotta tip no matter what. It's like taxes, tipping taxes. Like
Yeah. But you know what? That was one of my biggest culture shocks in going to America because the
Yeah, I was
tipping.
just going to ask if you guys tip, James, because in New Zealand we don't tip either. UK,
We do tip, but not to the extent of America. It's only really for like if you go out for a meal, you'd probably tip there.
Really? Oh, so I'm the only
Yeah.
one that was used to tipping. I think
Yeah,
it's
because
so
I remember
ridiculous.
I went to a bar in America and they had to explain to me that like you have to tip like $1 every drink you get, otherwise you're not gonna get served. And I was like, what? That blew my mind. And then
Yeah, like even the free drinks in Las Vegas, you gotta pay. It's free,
it
but no, you gotta tip. Like if you don't tip, they ain't gonna come back to you.
just blows my mind. It's So someone once explained it to me that it was because like the wages are too low that's the idea that you're tipping to help them out or something. That's what I got explained, but crazy.
You know what? You know the biggest thing that tripped me about tipping in America was that you can go to a serve yourself yogurt place. You go and grab your own cup. You go and choose your own yogurt. You go and choose your own topping. You put the yogurt on the scale they weigh. They calculate how much you owe, and they stick out their hand to collect your money. And there's a tip jar on the ground. Like, what the hell did you do to get tipped? I did everything myself. All you're doing is grabbing your money. Why should I tip you for taking the money? You know, it's
That
like
is insane.
that's like a perfect example where just tipping is just went out is just out of control in America.
Yeah, that is nuts. Yeah, we very different over here.
Yep. What's
So,
your number one?
Number one is a big one for me, and it's one that left the longest lasting impression, I think. And it's the generosity of the Japanese people, because I was outstanded by some of the things. And I got like countless different stories of different people that I've met that went above and beyond, and even like kindness of strangers, right? Because I think back to like once when I was looking for somewhere to go. I think I was looking for an office to pay my rent or something like that. I couldn't find out where it was, and someone could see that I was kind of lost just looking at a map trying to work out where it was. This is before Google Maps was, the thing the beast that it is today. But someone came and actually like not only showed me where it was, they took me to that place, and it was like a good 10 minutes out of their way, and I was like, what? That's crazy. And then another funny incident, my twin brother, he came to visit me in Japan. And it's actually a really funny story. We actually went to a pro wrestling show. We went to a big Japan pro wrestling event, and we ended up going out with some of the American wrestlers after the show, and we got absolutely hammered. And he had got the most drunk he's ever been, and drinking sake, the rice wine. And so,
Ooh.
yeah. So funnily enough, I was, we come out of the place. I actually found him outside. It was on like a 5th story floor, and I found him outside, and he was just like, so I was like, come on, let's go. That's how drunk he was. So I was taking him, and we went in a taxi trying to go back to my apartment. He was being sick, so we pulled over. We got out, and I was there, and I was generally really worried about him. I was like, oh shit, am I gonna have to take him to hospital? I've never seen him this drunk before. And then so I was a bit like, oh, what to do? And then this Japanese guy was just, walking along, minding his own business. And I sort of, used my broken Japanese, sumimasen, and it's like asking him like, oh, do you think he needs to go to hospital? And then he's like, no, just drunk, sort of thing. And then so we're having this sort of, semi-English, semi-Japanese chat. And then what was amazing was that 5 minutes later, he came back with, I think it was like a green tea, a cup of coffee, and he came back in a little bag, and he was like, this is for your brother. And I was like, what? And it was like to help him sober up, sort of thing. And I was just there's so many like little stories like that where I was just amazed. Like, it's like you said about when you leave like something, like I left I think my wallet, or I left a bottle of water once at a shop, and they would like come chasing after you, like, here's your nearly finished bottle of water. And it's just like those little things always just really stay with me, to be honest. But
The funny when you mentioned that, the things that come into my head is like if you go to a store and you ask them, oh, where is the ume potato chips? Like in Hawaii, they'll tell you, over there, aisle 8 or whatever, and they'll point to the place, and it's probably not going to be there. It's going to be near it, and then the Japanese people will actually get up from what they're doing and walk you all the way to it and help you find it.
wow, that's cool.
That was one thing that popped in my head when you said that. And the other thing that popped into my head was I forgot what it was going to say. Fuck.
I got one on that. In terms of the service as well. So where we go and buy our string for the bracelets, one time we had overpaid by 10 yen, which is like 10 cents, just for the sake of 1 for 1. So we'd overpaid by 10 yen. The next time we went, which was months later, they had our 10 yen to return to us in a little Ziploc bag. Like, please, like, don't forget your 10 yen you left in here last time, like your change.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
And I just remembered what I was going to say. I was going to say about, like, if you lose your wallet or your cell phone in Japan, 99.9% of the time, you're probably going to get it back. And you're going to have all your money and cards in the wallet.
It's crazy. It's just, Yeah, it's just
It's
so cool.
amazing. Yeah, Japan's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I do love that. I do. Yeah, this is always the thing that sort of stuck with me. But yeah, Sarah, your number one.
My number one, when I initially came here, I mean, this one's kind of been flogged to death by everybody, but um, just the general treatment of people with tattoos. Tattoos is a big one. So that was a bit of a shock because I come obviously from New Zealand. I'm Maori, so that's our moko. We call these moko. They're kind of a treasure and they're precious to us, and they're a big part of our culture. So to come to somewhere where it's like taboo and like people like no dame dame dame, like sometimes they'll tell you at the front like no, cannot. And I even got asked to leave a health center because of my tattoo. So we figured, because I got past the front desk, and then while I just finished showering inside, and one of the staff came in and told me kind of like aggressively, like, no, you have to get out, you have to leave, which probably means like one of the patrons complained. So that was really interesting. And in all honesty, like we know and understand that, so when in Rome, we respect the rules here. But that was really interesting and confronting for me when I first came here.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, and it's completely different, right? It's just crazy. There's nowhere else in the world that has that opinion on tattoos, right? So it's definitely one of the most shocking things.
Yeah. Speaking of when Sarah got kicked out of the health centers, I think it's important to point out, because I always get the question about, oh, if I have tattoos, is it going to be okay to go in this and that? In especially the health centers, or we call it hot springs, the onsens. 99% of the time, like Sarah's instance was a very rare instance, but if you get by the front desk, so if you're going to the front desk and they can see your tattoos, they're going to tell you right away, oh, sorry, no tattoos. But if you cover it all up, you get by the front desk, there's a good chance they're not going to kick you out, unless, like, if you're on your best behavior, you're not like kicking shit around or being a dick about anything, you're pretty much going to be able to stay in the onsen until you're done. And it's usually, if you get past the front desk, even if a worker sees you, they're not going to kick you out. If there's a complaint in any way, they're going to kick you out. So Sarah must have been like strutting around, kicking shit, bumping,
damn it,
slamming her
I
locker
knew
or
I shouldn't have
something.
kicked that thing around.
Because we actually went into the same, we went in together, and then we kind of looked at our clock and said, okay, we'll meet in an hour. So I figure, I don't stay in too long because I get hot. So I go bathe and I just lay in the hot spring a little while. I'm like, I look at my watch. Oh, I can go get a 40-minute massage. So I go get a massage, come back, go back in the shower, jump in, get ready. Say, okay, it's about time. I getting changed in the locker. Give Sarah a call and say, I'm about to be done. Are you almost done? And she goes, oh, I'm in the car. I'm like, oh, why are you in the car? She goes, oh, like 5 minutes into her own her hot spring, they asked her to leave. And how's that? She's in the car, waiting in the car, and I'm there getting a massage and sitting in the hot spring.
And funny, you've got as many tattoos as Sarah, right? If not, I don't know who's got more.
Not more.
No, Sarah didn't have that much. I had way more. I mean, she had probably like a 20th amount, one over 20.
Yeah,
I had 20 times more tattoos than her, but like I said, she must have been strutting and acting like some big gangster or something, get kicked out.
In saying that, there are some, so you get the onsen, like the nice hot springs, and then you get them all kind of them centaur. So they're a little bit more run down, kind of like a little bit more old school. And
that's
so a lot of the elderly
bath.
people go. Public, yeah. Those are actually like okay. A lot of them are okay with tattoos. So that's where Enson and I can go.
Right.
And that's always a real interesting experience too, because the one that's close to our house, it's all kind of like old ladies, and they'll just sit and stare at me, but then slowly they'll come up and like start talking to me, and they're like, "You're not Japanese, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not Japanese," but then they strike up a conversation and make me go and sit in the sauna with them. Like, so it's real interesting.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, back in the day, Japan didn't have their own baths, so there was a public bath. They call it a sento, where they would have a public bath in the town, and everyone would bathe there. So those are still around. They're called sentos. And for me, every time I go to a sento, it was like I'd say like 80% of the time you'll see somebody, either a gangster or some dude with like a total full body tattoo in there.
Whoa. That's pretty cool. That's crazy. So, your number one, Enson, what have you got for us?
My number one still trips me out today is,
Okay.
as you probably know by coming here, Japan is a land of rules. There's rules. You don't break rules,
Mhm.
And one of the rules that I really just can't get used to is the fact that you can go to look at a menu in Japan and have curry rice, and then you can have another different dish that's tonkatsu or chicken katsu. But there is no way in hell they'll ever make you a chicken katsu curry. It's like you got the katsu, you got the chicken, you got the curry. Why can't you make me the chicken curry? It's like they can't figure it out. I'm like, you charge me more, because you're putting the chicken katsu on the curry now. Charge me more. No, we don't have that on the menu. But it's like, because it's not on the menu, they refuse to make it. That trips me out, man. It's like, wow, you got chicken katsu and you got curry. Why can't I have chicken katsu curry? They can't.
Yeah.
They can't. A lot of these Japan people, they have this, like, Sarah call it like a system. Don't screw up their system.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
for example, they're at the convenience store. They'll ring up your shit, and then they'll bag everything for you,
Mhm.
and then they'll heat up your shit, get it out. They got so much things to do. A lot of times I'm like, make their work easy and make everything faster, especially if there's a line. We try to tell them, give us the bag and we'll pack the shit ourselves. And they kind of like, you almost like fluster them. Like they start screwing shit up because like, oh shit, you just threw off their whole system. Like, no, I'm supposed to do that, but you're doing it now. Okay. And they get flustered a lot of times. And the convenience store is just one example. It's a lot of times you have that when you do something that's out of the ordinary, they get flustered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've witnessed that a few times. Because you think sometimes, like, as a foreigner, you just do the things you take for granted, right? And then you'd see it that it's sort of like break a system. And it's like, whoa, oh, I didn't mean to. But yeah. Crazy. Did you guys have any like honorable mentions that were like close to make the list but didn't quite make the list?
I thought of
Sarah?
one as we were talking. Yeah. Something that was really that it still really intrigues me is like I wrote it down as like the gangster etiquette. Something that I feel I feel really lucky that I've been privy to um some things with Ensign, and it is really interesting to go into like a room or a situation and being able to read the room now and know who's in charge and who's like what position based on the way they're acting and the etiquette and the kind of the way people are talking and exchanges. So that was a kind of a shock and a learning point for me, but I find that really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can in Japan you can pretty much guess the ranks of everybody. Like you can know who's number one, number two, that guy's under that guy, that guy's under that guy, and that's the lowest guy. Just the way they react to each other, what they do for each other, the way they talk to each other. You can it's really clean cut on who's the boss and who's right under the boss and who's a common member and who's like the lowest, the youngest guy. You can pretty much see how they react to each other. That's interesting.
Yeah. That's crazy. Can't say I've seen that myself yet, but who knows? So, Ent, do you have any other ones on your list? Maybe something that didn't quite make
Yeah,
the
you
cut?
give me. I just forgot mine, so you can say yours. I'll remember as you talk.
Yeah. The only one I had, which sort of crossed my mind, was I remember just how slim everyone was. I remember barely seeing anyone that was overweight. And I remember being it's such a shock. Like the only time you'd see someone that was overweight was a foreigner like myself or someone else, right? Where you'd be like, oh, yeah, oh, he's not Japanese, you can tell. Like, like, do you know what I mean? It was like everyone was. I remember I probably could count on my hand how many times I saw like a Japanese person that looked kind of like they'd had too much ramen or whatever. Like it's and that was a big
crazy
one
about that.
for me. Mm.
Yeah, what's crazy about that is like, diet culture now, like popular diet culture tells you to cut carbs and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Japan, like the Japanese diet is so carb heavy. Like you get a lot of these people like they're eating ramen and stuff at like, all hours of the night when they, after a night on the drink. But so they have like a really carb rich diet.
Yeah.
So it goes against, like popular Western diet culture. It's so trippy. But portion sizes are a big thing here too. Like they actually control themselves.
yeah. So true. But yeah, that was the only other one I had which sort of crossed my mind.
Yeah. Funny, I had a whole list, but the one that I want to mention that would be an honorable mention also for me is one that I thought of as we talked. But it's in Japan, you don't usually talk to people you don't know. I mean, if someone has a cute dog, you don't usually go and tell them their dog is cute. If someone, you see someone wearing like a new bag and it's like you think it's really nice, you don't usually go and say, "Wow, that's a really nice bag." They'll like freak out. And the funny thing is, I'm that total person that will talk to anybody. I'll talk to a cute girl. I'll talk to an old lady. I'll talk to an old man. I'll talk to anybody if it's something that, wow, check it out. And it's something you feel like is worth mentioning. Like we'll walk by a yard and then the lady has beautiful flowers in her yard. I'll tell them when I see them, when we walk by, if they're in their yard, I'll say, "Oh my God, your garden is beautiful." A lot of things in Japan. It's funny thing is you don't usually talk to people that you don't know, but with the exception, when I went to Shikoku and I did the pilgrimage there, it's like a whole different world there. You walk by anybody from young children to elementary school kids to high school kids to elderly people. They'll greet you with passion, like konnichiwa. It was not like konnichiwa. It's like they'll look at you in your eyes and say, "Oh, konnichiwa," and you say it back to them. It's like, wow. It's like when I did the pilgrimage and I did it for a whole month, I got so used to doing that. When I came back into my own town and I did a walk around my town and I saw a person walk by, I had that habit of saying, konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu. And then here, they kind of look at you like, some people will reluctantly go, ohayo gozaimasu, kind of look at you like, I don't know you, but ohayo gozaimasu. And then there are some that will totally ignore you, just like look at you like, I don't know you, don't talk to me, and walk by,
Yeah.
So that's one of the honorable mentions for me is, if you don't really talk to people that you don't know.
Yeah. That's a big one though, because I remember like the first time I was out there was for a good sort of 4 or 5 months, and I remember it being really difficult to make friends that were Japanese. I made a lot of friends that were other foreigners that had come to like travel and visit. I met some really nice, really cool people. Some people I wish I was still in contact with, but unfortunately not anymore. But yeah, the Japanese people is really hard because they almost like schedule things in, and it was I don't know, I always find it very difficult to start that sort of friendship with someone. Japanese, it's hard, right? They almost like want that bond, whereas like you talk to strangers, right, and you come up with, realize that you're on the same level as me, and you kind of get to know them and you like them and stuff. But it's very hard to do over there, so it makes sense when you say about strangers not really talking to other strangers out there. So
also sarcasm gets missed a lot here. So like for example, Enson, as he does, he's real friendly and he talks to people at the checkout and stuff, and he'll kind of like make a little joke or say something in a little kind of sarcasm, and they kind of will just like, huh? Like you can see it just go totally over the, like they don't get it. We're kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, sarcasm.
Yeah, like for example, I do it sometimes where you're buying like a whole basket full of drinks and little gadgets, from the convenience store. And obviously there's no way you're going to be able to carry it out. And they ask you, "Oh, do you need a bag?" And I'm like, I kind of sometimes I joke around and say, no, I think I'll just carry it all in my hand, and it's impossible. And they'll kind of look at you like, oh. I said, no. I said, it's like you're expecting them when you say like, oh no, I'm just joking. I need a bag.
Yeah.
Of course, I need a bag. You expect them to laugh, but they kind of like, oh, so you need a bag. It's like everything's so serious. I mean, there's a lot of times you joke around and they kind of look at you like they get confused because they're literally taking it seriously. Like, oh, and then when you tell them you're joking, it's like, oh, why are you joking about that?
So true. No, it's
Ooh,
cool. That
I
was
have
really fun.
another honorable mention.
Hit us.
I think we could actually go on, like, I think we could talk
Yeah.
forever about this because there's so many different things. But
Oh.
something I don't think any of us mentioned was the slurping of the ramen.
Oh yeah.
And soba and stuff. I still have a hard time with that because we just had it drilled into us growing up that, you know, that's so rude to do.
Yeah.
But here it's like, oh my gosh,
It's like a compliment,
interesting.
right? Or something like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and if it's like if you can fuck around and just go with your ramen and no one will look at you weird. It's like it's so like whoa.
So
Oh
different.
wow! Like yeah, it's like you hear someone slurp, you kind of whoa. And and he kind of, and he just, and as you look at him, you think you're like he's maybe like get a little shame. He's just putting in another mouthful, like whoa.
Yeah. There's so many though. Like you just made me think of another one. Like lots of people eating on their own. You see that all the time in Japan. You never see that here in the UK.
Yeah, not in Hawaii either, man.
Even the way you call the waiters and stuff, like when you go to a sushi restaurant, it's like you sit at the sushi bar and you have to like call out your orders. I'm sure Enson probably laughs at me because I'm still not completely comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But he he'll encourage me. He's like, order what you want, just do it. Like,
shout.
Salmon onegaishimasu. He's like, you could louder. It's interesting.
And it's funny too because when you're at the sushi, the rotation sushi restaurants, you don't need to, like usually it's you want to make eye contact, and when they look at you, say, "Oh, can I have two of this?" In the sushi restaurants, you just scream out, like I like this thing called kani salada, and I say kani, and then if I want like 3, it's mitsu, so I'll just scream out kani salada mitsu,
coming right up,
and then you can,
and then you get
some
that,
some guy on the other side go, oh, like okay, they got it.
Oh, that's cool. I've never been to one of those sushi bars, so I need to do that. That's on my bucket list. But yeah, that was
so we're
awesome.
We're going to take you there and the sushi and shabu shabu so far on the list now.
Hell yeah. Sounds good. But yeah, to all the people that enjoyed this podcast, let us know if you've been to Japan. What are some of the things that you guys, maybe there's something we missed. There probably is. There's so many, right? So I'll be curious to know what other people have seen and have been shocked by. Culture shock. It's a real deal. So let us know what you guys think. Guys, any parting words before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, and those of you who have never been to Japan, hopefully this episode will save you some embarrassment from doing something that's going to give you weird looks or frowns, So, like, Japan's really a different culture. And, being here for 31 years, sometimes I'm still not used to a lot of the stuff that happened here. But, the stuff we talked about was pretty good because there's a lot of stuff that you will encounter when you come here. So hopefully this podcast will help people, have their trip go a little smoother in Japan without any controversy or embarrassment.
Definitely.
I got 2 things of advice. One, I would say, like, be open to new experiences or, the way people do things. So just because it doesn't happen in your country, like, don't just go with the flow. You might learn something here. 2 would be to learn simple Japanese phrases, like sumimasen, like arigatou gozaimasu, like just real simple hello, thank you, excuse me, sorry. Those things, they'll get you far.
It's true. It's very true. Wise words. Well, let's end on that. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, that was pretty cool, man. How'd you like it, Sarah?
It was really. I felt like we could have gone on and on with that list.
Yeah, I mean, it was like as we were talking, I was like, wow, all these things, and after doing it, I'm just hoping that people who travel to Japan, it would help them, save embarrassment, go a little smoother with their traveling and enjoy the country. So if you guys have any like comments of what you guys want us to talk about, different stuff about Japan, any questions, make sure you put in the comments, like, and make sure you subscribe. Right on.